Hello, and welcome to the Storytelling Project. I see there's a couple of people have just joined on, so if you could, so I'm going to tell you a story. It's about Jack the Travel Bug. There's a picture of Jack there. Jack, what a travel bug is. There's a hobby called geocaching. It's a hobby I was really involved with uh, when I was about 15 to 20 years ago when I was in scouting. And geocaching is a is a hobby. Quite simply explain it. With geocaching, you hide these little containers, and right now there's 3,250,000 of these containers worldwide that are hidden. And when I started doing this around 2001, 2002, there was probably 1/10 of that, if even that. It was just getting started, and it was kind of a fun hobby to do. Um, so, um, with geocaching, there's all these caches. So basically, the idea is you go into the website, you find you find the geocache, and there's coordinates that you can. In the old days, we used to print these pages out, or you put them on a geocaching app, or you just put the coordinates into your GPS. And the GPSs that we were using were much like the GPSs there. So you're basically when I loved this thing was when I was the scout leader with all the young scouts and that. And the whole program was to get outside, so they were very. So it was a lot more easy to get the scouts to get all excited about going for a hike if you weren't just going for a hike, but you were going for a treasure hunt. And what geocaching was a big treasure hunt. In fact, it was such a success in our program. You see all those little these GPS units on the table there. That's from the Scout Jamboree. In fact, I led with my brother-in-law a whole program of geocaching at the Scout Jamborees in 2007 and 2011. This picture was taken in 2007. In fact, I think there's me sitting at the table there, kind of getting all prepared. Right here, this big birdhouse is actually a geocache, and that was a really cool geocache. You'd go in there, and it was lent to me for the jamboree. It was called a bug hotel, and you'd open it up, and there's a place that you can store travel bugs, and there was a logbook. It was called a bug hotel. Now, what bugs are, and that's very important for this story, travel bugs were part of geocaching. What a travel bug was, a geocache was an item that not only could you track all the geocaches that you visited, but you could as well uh, take these travel bugs and put them in. There's a little tracking device for them, and then they could travel from cache to cache to cache. Now the screen you're looking at is Jack's Burger Odyssey, and that's what my story is about. It's a travel bug that I released to the world in April 2014. Now, what's kind of funny about this travel bug is the way I acquired it. I was just getting into geocaching in 2014. I'd been doing it for a little while and loved the concept of travel bugs. And I was traveling down to Seattle on a business trip. I had some event down there, and I was still kind of dressed up a little bit. But as I was going at that time, geocache was still fairly new. There's only so many caches out there. As I was driving down to Seattle through Bellingham on the way to Seattle, I noticed there was a geocache close by and had extra time, so I found the entrance to this path into this forest. And I went into the forest, and in the forest, I found a geocache. It was getting a little bit uncomfortable, but the geocache was inside what's called an ammo box. That's the steel box that the army would put their bullets into in that. So, but these old containers were great geocache containers that you could lock them up, put them in the woods, and they were already camouflaged. So I found this camouflage ammo container in the woods in Washington State, and as I'm looking through this ammo container, these other people start flying by me on bicycles on the trail. And I was looking very conspicuous at that point, but Inside the ammo box, much to my surprise, was Jack. And Jack was a bobblehead doll from the Jack in the Box chain. So I thought this would be a great travel bug. So what I did is I did this whole page in geocaching where I was going to let Jack go out in the world on a mission. And the mission was, as per the page here, Jack's mission is to visit burger joints around the world to discover the world's best hamburger. His favorite is now the White Spot Triple O. And Jack and I, about this item, as I just said, Jack was found in the woods in Washington State, just south of Bellingham. He came to Canada with 2Poco, that was my handle. My son and I were 2Poco, and discovered a new world of hockey and better burgers. He's now in a quest to find the world's best burger. He's also now a hockey fan, would love to be photographed with the team hockey pucks around the world. In fact, I did have a picture of Jack with a hockey puck that I had. In fact, if you go into the post in geocaching.com, just kind of go in the story, the original post would have, I think I had a picture of Jack with a hockey puck. Anyways, I released Jack in the World on April 18th, 2014 in a cache that I had set up. And my nephew, who I thought was the world's best geocacher, found him on April 27th, and then he took a photograph of Jack. Here it is there at McDonald's, and he was he put him in another cache on May 1st. So I thought, okay, May 1st, it's been a week now. He's already moved on from one cache to the other. This is really good. And then from the cache my nephew did on May 13th, the next day, this fella named Canadian Bacon picked up Jack, saying, I love burgers too. Hopefully I can introduce him to a homemade Canadian bacon burger before I set him free. And then on May 23rd, this is 2014, Canadian Bacon takes Jack to a barbecue. So here's a screenshot of Jack at the barbecue. I'm on the page here. I have to make sure I go back to the pages for you guys. And there's a picture of him. In fact, not only at the barbecue, but standing in the barbecue. So this is all really exciting. So there we go. So this then was placed in a cache in Fort Langley, and after about a week, he was there. A week later, he placed him in Fort Langley, and on July 1st, which was about a month, I was getting kind of anxious. I mean, Jack hasn't moved on. I mean, he was moving on right away, but he's been sitting in Fort Langley for a month. So about July 1st or 2nd, that the long weekend, I got my son Pearson, my nephew Jake in the car, and we headed out to Fort Langley to retrieve Jack the travel bug. But already this person named Cowboy and Hobbs had retrieved him. Well, it's time for Jack to get moving again after celebrating Canada Day with us. It's only proper for him to also celebrate Independence Day as well. So he liked us so much that Jack decided to stay. So he took him down to Washington State, and he placed Jack in Glacier Peak Wilderness in a cache called Spider Meadows. Now, so that was great. Jack was in the U.S. He's traveled all this way in a couple of short months. But then I started to wonder, like, where is Spider Meadows? In fact, Spider Meadows is actually up a forest trail. It had a real difficulty rating in the Cascades Mountain, not very far from Leavenworth, Washington. And I'm going, what? He placed them way up here. No. The cache had hardly any visitors, and I was concerned that Jack was going to be stuck there. Well, indeed, Jack was stuck there. Almost a year went by. In fact, it was a year. This was in July, and I kept wanting Jack to be picked up. Winter came. Jack wasn't going anywhere in the winter up in the mountains of the Cascade Mountains. So that next summer, I was thinking, we have to go rescue Jack. And indeed, my cousins, John, had a family reunion happening up at his place in Nanton, Alberta the following summer. So I thought, well, why don't I take a road trip here? I'll take my son Pierce and we'll go on a father-son road trip. A chance for us to do a little bit father-son bonding, and we'll go rescue Jack. So we got in the car and we headed off to Spider Meadows. Now, Spider Meadows, you see the difficulty of terrain. In fact, that's underestimating. It was difficult to get to. But we took off to the States, and we drove down to Washington State, and we found our ways to just outside Leavenworth, Washington. Had a beautiful night camping in this beautiful camp spot, and then we headed up the up to the foot of the trailhead, and as it says in the geocache description on the page here, there was a 2 hour walk to go to Spider Meadows. We took this beautiful walk up this inclining trail, and we got to Spider Meadows. And here's a picture of Spider Meadows. So basically, we came out of the forest, and we see Spider Meadows here. And I trust you can see this picture there. Now, see the rocks in the distance? What was really cool is we walked through the forest, and we heard this whistling sound. And what was whistling, you can't see them in the photograph very well, but they are there, is there were marmots or mountain marmots around the rock, and they were like calling to us, over here, over here. And I'm looking at the GPS, and indeed, over there is where Jack was supposed to be, where Spider Meadows cache was supposed to be, and Jack was supposed to be in that cache. So we got there, and around the left side of the rock here, there was a little bit of kind of a cave underneath the rock that it had been obviously a critter's cave. It was big enough, but in there was a black garbage bag kind of torn apart, and the log book for the cache was torn out of there, and there beside that black bag was Jack. Now the photograph of me in this on the right here is me actually holding Jack. Now I'm yelling and screaming, all excited about it. I think some of the other hikers that are up there are wondering, what is this guy going about? Pierce is probably trying to hide under the rock. He took the picture, by the way, of, why would I be so excited? But I had found Jack. So from there, we went down back. We walked back down the hill, made our way down pretty quickly, because it's downhill now instead of uphill. And we got to Leavenworth, Washington. And there was Jack enjoying his burger with Pierce at the Leavenworth drive-in. And there on the right is myself and Pierce, and there's Jack on the top of our car. And from Leavenworth we headed to Montana, then up through Montana into Alberta. In fact, on the way, which is kind of cool, as an aside, we actually saw in Spokane, Washington, the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile. We would never have seen this if we hadn't gone on this trip. So to continue with Jack's story, when we got to Alberta, my cousin lives on a property very close to here. This is the location, the cache called Classic Rangelands, and this is like cattle country, and there's cattle often. There might have even been some in the distance here grazing on this cattle land, and I thought, what a perfect place to place Jack. Jack would be in Alberta next to the cattle. He's a hamburger guy. What a perfect place. So there's a picture of my cousin's wife, Andrea, and my nephew, Tom, who was at the family reunion, with Jack and Tom's hand about to place him in the Classic Rangelands. So here he is. He's now at the Classic Rangelands Classic Rangelands cache. There's Jack, and we had stuck him in there, and there should be some information here. I look in the log, so I stuck him in there, and the cache is still going on. But the unfortunate thing, if I look at the logs for Jack the Travel Bug, is he was put in there, placed on July 2nd by my nephew and on July 31st, so he was there for almost a month. He was picked up by some fellow to Excalibur who says, took Jack, we'll try a steak instead of a burger, we'll place him in the Jasper area. And then Jack moved on, and unfortunately, that is where the story ends. Jack the Travel Bug was never seen or heard from again. I actually tried to contact Excalibur to find out, what are you doing with Jack? Jack needs to be traveling around from cache to cache, but Excalibur was a kind of a novice geocacher who was not into the hobby very long, and he just took off with Jack. We never saw him again, which is kind of sad, but kind of the fun thing about the story is I got to spend a fabulous week with my son almost a week just with my son and I, camping, hiking, finding Jack, and on this kind of adventure. My son there was probably, I think, 14 at the time. So it's quite a long time ago, but we had a fun time. And that hobby, if you ever get a chance to do geocaching, especially with kids, it's a great hobby. We actually help at the Jamboree. We actually had what were called geocoins, which were coins that were made to be tracked as a trackable item like Jack, and we actually paid for the 2007 and 2011 to basically subsidize their program through the sale of these coins who got to travel all over the world. In 2007, the World Jamboree was going on, so we actually had some coins placed outside the World Jamboree site too. This coin here is in the hands of some fellow named Rupin, and this was from 2007. It was released, and it's traveled 7,700 kilometers. So they can go a long way. Most of them get lost after a few years, but it's kind of a real fun hobby. So I hope you enjoyed my story of Jack the Travel Bug, and that's sort of like idea of an idea of what sort of stories that can come out of the project. It can be a simple story of one's faith. It can be a story. I see Denise Drummond's on board. Hi, Denise. Great to have you. Denise has got a wonderful interview with Denise where she was just telling me we talked about how she got into Coquitlam and about her family, and then I have when I'm interviewing folks, I have some kind of open-ended questions that I stole from the Actors Studio, which is kind of fun, and it's allowed us to have some good conversations with some of the folks about that. So guys, I'm not going to go on much longer here. I promise this to be about a half an hour thing. Please, if you go to again, the link. The link is the link to the page itself, where you can find all the published videos that I've got right now. So be sure to subscribe. If you subscribe, what that will mean is you'll automatically be sent a link every week when a new video gets published. If not, just look for the Storytelling Project. With the algorithm of YouTube, you're not going to find it that easy through the searches yet until I get some more subscribers and more views. It's all about views with YouTube, and this is sort of not a kind of a topic where people are going to naturally get subscribers. If I was trying to tell you how to put your makeup on or how to mow your lawn in a certain way, people might be looking for that information. They're not just necessarily looking for stories of personal stories like this, but I think if we're patient and over time, God willing, we'll get some more stories. I said there's more in the can that are going to be published in the next little while, and just kind of watch for them, and we'll just tell your friends about the channel, and please share videos